My name is Kate Macaulay, and this summer I'll be co-leading the workshop, um, Planning and Design for School.
Why do you think this workshop is important for teachers to take?
I think a lot of times in schools, depending on our role in schools or in education in general, a lot of times we have an idea for something, but we're not really exactly sure how to execute it. And this workshop is really about taking those ideas and growing them and building them into something that meets your vision, and in this case, vision for STEM. So we're hoping to have rich discussions among teacher leaders, building leaders, maybe curriculum leaders, and really thinking about how we can kind of coordinate efforts, maybe design curriculum, maybe design a school-wide event, maybe think about STEM as integration on a larger scale in a school. But how do you take the ideas that you have and your kind of align it with your kind of school's uh, mission for STEM? And then how do you combine those into kind of actually rolling out best practices, um, or a new program or something, you know, a new experience for your students or your community?
I do think that's super essential to have, especially with, school leaders kind of falling out of touch with what it feels like to be in the classroom because they may have gone into admin for a few years. So it's they have this new role, they have their new responsibilities. And obviously they've had their time in the classroom, but they're no longer there. And every single day it's like a new uphill battle. So
Mhm.
I think sometimes they may forget that or they may forget what it is to be in a classroom. So to have just a workshop dedicated to make sure the efforts of the teacher and the school leaders are on the same page or working toward whatever their mission is, whatever their goals are, and just to ensure that everyone is aligned sounds great. And I do think it would be something that, I think it's important to address that sometimes teachers don't feel supported, and this is how leaders can be supported.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think it's important because I think a lot of the best efforts come kind of from a grassroots managing up situation. So hopefully this will also kind of empower student teachers to take the next step, regardless of kind of what's happening at a leadership level at your school.
Right. And this next question, you'll have to change a little bit because it's for leaders, but how do you think the content in this workshop is going to help leaders in their everyday role?
Sure. I mean, I think part of the goal for everyone in this workshop is really kind of like leveraging what are the strengths that already exist at your school. So, as a school leader, thinking about who on your faculty is in what role. How can we use their strengths? How can we use their best practices to, you know, to build our STEM program or to make our STEM program better, to level up our STEM program, whatever it is that we're looking to do. This is the time to really kind of take a deep dive into whatever already exists, kind of who the players are, how we can use everyone to their maximum potential. How can we create an atmosphere where people feel like this is a collaborative effort, perhaps? Because one of the tenets of STEM is that it's a collaborative approach to problem solving. So, kind of even within that, making sure that the approach you're taking as a school leader maybe is a collaborative approach. So that way people feel involved in the process of building this program and rolling it out in a way that is going to be the best for your school, for your students, for your community.
Mhm. Right. And what do you think is going to be the most engaging part of your workshop? And can you explain how?
Sure. So, one of the goals of the workshop is that people come with an idea. So, when you register for the workshop, we ask a few questions up front about what you want to get out of the workshop. So, we can really tailor our session together to meet the needs of the people who have signed up and the participants who are going to be there on that day. We really want people to leave with a couple of different things. One is a plan of action. So, kind of like, let's come up with an idea. Let's help you build your idea. One of the hardest parts sometimes of being in a leadership role in a school is you don't necessarily have people to bounce ideas. It can be a little lonely sometimes at the top. So, how here we have a community in this workshop where we can bounce ideas off one another. give feedback. So hopefully by the end of the session, there's some kind of plan of action in place. And how well developed it is going to be kind of up to, the participant and kind of where they are in their own planning. But we also want people to leave with a really clear way of communicating their idea. One of the hardest parts sometimes is just selling people on why your idea is a great idea to move forward on.
Mhm.
And so something like an elevator pitch or some kind of explanatory handout or some kind of um, way of presenting a well thought out communication about your plan is going to be another thing that we hope that people leave with. So that way, no matter who you're trying to convince, whether it's a colleague, whether it's a school board, whether it's a administrator, whether it's your faculty, how are you going to communicate your plan in the most kind of authentic but also motivating way?
Right. And I think it also like provides the opportunity for, everyone attending the workshop to do like a self reflection on what their practices were in this past school year and kind of thinking forward for this upcoming school year. And like, like you said, come up with a draft or a actionable plan that they want to implement, or maybe just come up with ideas that, they saw they did something this past year, didn't work out. Well, how can they go ahead and improve on what they did and so on. So I think it's also just a great space for self-reflection and to obviously self-reflect in a way that you're improving with the intention of being better for the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the good things about the timing of the workshop is it's in the beginning of July and we end school
Mhm.
so late this year that, things are pretty fresh in your mind at the beginning of July. So hopefully, like you said, people will be able to kind of reflect on what happened over the course of the school year, where they want to start out in September. And really, no matter what it is, it could be the goal to just implement a unit, right? Like a new
Mhm.
unit that has to do with STEM. The goal could be to run a family night, where people come and engage around STEM in your community, or it could be larger scale. But we really hope that
Mhm.
people, you know, can use this workshop in whatever way is most meaningful to them and then leave with a way of communicating that goal to the rest of their community.
Right. And I kind of think you've already answered my last question, but the last question is, what takeaways do you want your participants to leave after attending your workshop?
Yeah, so we, um, as mentioned, hopefully people leave with some kind of plan of action. So, you know, if they are hoping to implement a unit or a project, like where does that fit into your curriculum? What are some of the kind of logistical things to getting this off the ground and getting it going? What are some of the ways that what you're planning aligns with your school mission or your school's philosophy on STEM education? Who are the constituents? Who are you going to have to kind of convince, or not even if it convince in a bad way, but like who do you want to share in your idea? I mean, I have a principal who's incredibly supportive. I don't have to I'm in a great position where I don't have to like sell them on what I'm doing, but I do want to
Mhm.
include them in a way that they understand, um, all that went into this experience and all the planning behind it and include them in our school community, to enjoy this project that we're doing or this, family night or this STEM program. So, hopefully people leave with that in mind and, something tangible. We also hope that this isn't like the last time we talk to our participants. One of the things at STEM Teachers NYC that I think is really important is we're constantly trying to talk and reach out to our alumni who have been in our workshops before. And I think particularly in this workshop, having check-ins throughout the year will be really interesting to hear how these plans are kind of rolling out in the
Mhm.
schools and what the feedback is from the teachers and the school leaders who attended the workshop. Um, it'll just be hopefully we can kind of continue the conversation past the point of the workshop.
Yeah, I think it'll be nice to have like a space where teachers and school leaders can collaborate with others that outside of their immediate like workspace. Cause like you're in the workspace and the people you work with, you see them every day and you may not be like the most susceptible to what their thoughts are, but like it's always nice to get like a third party kind of perspective on things. You know, you may be biased or whatever it may be. We deal with so many things in the day. Like, it's always like every single day is a new battle. And I think just having a space where you can kind of go back to an unbiased person or persons and talk to them about, like, well, I did this, this is what happened, what do you think? And then get what they think. And then, like, also every school is very different in their missions, obviously. But there are similarities amongst all schools. And we can even talk about, like, okay, like, what did you implement? Maybe I can implement, and kind of like that back and forth kind of trial and error. And like, you can have that criticism to be just given out. And I think that just also just feels nice because it's like an additional level of support that teachers may not feel like they have at their current school, but they can start striving towards because they're getting more comfortable having these lines of communication open.
Yeah, absolutely. And this workshop is in person. So that's also a nice thing. It's been a while since I've done an in person workshop with STEM Teachers NYC, and I'm happy to kind of be back and feel kind of the energy in the room with other educators.
I'm excited to see just how it pans out because I do think like having just the idea of allowing school leaders to get into this collaborative kind of group and think about, like, these are the practices I've done as a teacher and now I'm a school leader. How do I connect the two and make sure everything is aligned so that those school leaders, admin, teachers feel like they're all striving towards the same goals and like they're not pitted against each other? Because sometimes it may feel like that. Well, we all know like our goals are the same.
Right.
So I'm super excited to see that.
Great.